So our focus here at CompassCom is we are a real-time mobile asset tracking solution. Let me get my slides deck up here. We're celebrating our 30th year in the business, and in doing so, we have been an Esri partner for 30 years, one of the select few that have been around for many years. Our focus in this space has always been to provide real-time situational awareness in a GIS-centric environment. If you look at some of our clients we deal with in the U.S. Capitol Police, dealing with unique situations in D.C., search and rescue with sheriffs, and also with fire departments, wildland fire. We do all the tracking for Illinois DOT, the 8th largest communication network or transportation network in the country, which provides some really interesting disaster management challenges in that they have flooding on the Mississippi River. They have 11 nuclear facilities in the state that they have to plan for, and also being able to provide modal transport around airports and also many interstates from a very populous area of northern Illinois all the way down to rural Illinois. So it's been a 10-year client of ours, and it gives you a lot of perspective on how do you plan for what could happen in this space. We do work with the security side of the Air Force and the Army for base security and both internationally and locally. We do a lot of work with state and local snowplows, and blizzards are disasters. I mean, you recall the recent blizzard we had a couple years ago up in Bismarck, North Dakota, in the end of March, I believe, or April, where it snowed 2 feet. A lot of different things to deal with there. We do this through our network of partners with, of course, Esri for 30 years, Motorola for 11 years. Most recently, BK Technologies is a radio company we work with as well. So when we look at the 5 stages of disasters, and Mike and Jeremiah have gone through this, so I want to focus on when it comes to location and working with people in the field, how does this all relate? Well, the emergency management professionals do a lot of the pre-planning, setting up of all the systems on the back end that once something happens, it can be dealt with. Many of the things you saw today with the Esri software. But when it comes to preparedness, response, and recovery, in the preparedness side, there are training exercises that go on consistently to make sure that we're ready when things happen. Then when something does happen, then there's a response and the recovery. And the ability to communicate with the first responders and other commanders and other people in the chain is key. And I want to focus on that today. And when we look at what fails during a disaster, typically the power goes out, landline communication fails, wireless communication, typically broadband wireless, the commercial wireless will fail. The P25 networks, radio are more resilient. Water sanitation, fuel delivery, food supply. These are the areas that get impacted in many of the disasters. And when it comes to communication, what we're primarily looking at for our system is voice and data communications are what's important. And when you have broadband, talking about your standard cellular services provided by Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, or whoever, those systems can be affected by these events and typically are affected more than the land mobile radio systems, the P25 public safety grade radio systems. Then they bring in local networks to supplement the systems that are down. Many times, and Chief Isaacs is going to follow me, can talk about what happens when those come in. And we're getting more and more options for satellite with Starlink And there's going to be a lot more options with satellite coming soon with the small sat business. Chief Isaac will also talk about redundancy and making sure you have redundancy in the system, because not everything all works all the time, all at once. But one thing I would like to talk about, especially in preparedness when you're doing your training exercises, you should plan for the fact that you're not going to have many of these services. Just don't assume you're going to have voice communication. Don't assume you're going to have data communications. And what are the strategies around dealing with when you don't have that, and how you will work through it? The ability to see real time when to respond or to an event, a 911 call event. Many, most all in Florida and in the hurricane recovery sites, when the sustained winds are above 40 miles per hour, they don't even go out. So they're recording incidents, they're recording calls, they're getting ready. So when the winds do come down, they can go out. And you want to be able to make sure that you have the systems, and then when you're able to go out, to dispatch the right resource to the right place at the right time. So our system is about total insight and total control of connected workforce. We do this from fleets, for, as I said, from snow to public works to defense to first responders. But it's about being able to take multiple different kinds of assets, whether they're vehicle boxes in the car, a handheld radio, a smartphone, bring them through multiple communication networks, be it a Motorola P25 network, a Codan conventional system out west that are used primarily by the firefighting services, or standard broadband radio systems come into our system. We store the data and serve it out in an Esri-based environment. And that environment is our CompassTrac viewer, but we also offer connectors that can go to things like GeoEvent or Velocity, or interface with as many of the things Jeremiah talked about. We also are doing more on the security side with TAC. And if you have more interest in TAC, please contact us. We can tell you about it. But it's the ability to take a broadband smartphone, bring that information in with a Motorola or BK radio system, and put it all in one Esri common operational picture, which has been very helpful in events, especially events. And they're struggling a bit to get it up and running, happen in Butler, PA, but that is the future of where a lot of these event-based things are happening. We interface just not with one different type of com and or manufacturer, from Motorola to BK, Motorola Turbo, Cradlepoint, Sierra Wireless, all simultaneously to bring into a common operational picture. We can bring land mobile radio, broadband, and satellite communications in, which is very important in disaster management, because if any of those fails, you do have some redundancy. It's all developed on an Esri-based mapping platform, and we access Esri ArcGIS online when we have internet connectivity, or many of our clients that are on-prem provide their own data that's on-prem and available no matter what happens on the outside world. We do real-time alerting, whether it's emergency alert on pushing a button on a radio or on a cell phone, geofencing, being able to geofence areas that have been searched in after an incident to make sure we've covered them, and do search and rescue. Also, we've had people use ours in line with what Jeremiah was talking about, doing geofencing of pump sites for water systems during hurricanes, to monitor overtime spent out pumping stations out, to help generate hours spent on site for FEMA as well. We have all the data is stored in a SQL database and is produced and reported on. We have dashboards you can see in real time, or go back and produce analytics for one asset, multiple assets over a period of time on your demand. We have output connectors, as we said, for TAC, which is the tactical service that many of our public safety, and even Chief Isaac can even speak to a little bit. He's looking at using, and then computer-aided dispatch, we interface with different Esri interfaces and also Trimble, Unity, and CityWorks. We deploy security hardened systems. We're approved with the Department of Energy, the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Army. We do a lot of on-prem secure systems that, in addition to our other deployments, because they still require it and want it that way. So our deployments can be done in CompassTrac Enterprise is an on-prem. It can be done in a hybrid open solution where we can access mapping data from ArcGIS Online or other mapping sources or mapping services, or it can be totally locked down in a case of the Department of Energy where they do not want any outside influence, and we provide the mapping data internal along with location of radios along the site to provide security for these high profile locations. CompassWorks is our cloud-based solution. A lot of state and local government now is moving to cloud-based on on areas that are not quite as secure. And then CompassRespond, which we'll talk about briefly, is our tactical system, which can be deployed anywhere with radios when wireless connectivity is necessarily not consistent or not available, or after a disaster when wireless may not be available, you can bring the system with you and stand up a system and with the mapping data on an Esri-based environment and track and monitor your response and recovery after the incident. So this has been used specifically, and Chief Isaac has a system he uses. We have systems with the Mexican military. We have them in other parts of the country here as well. And we are doing more and more Starlink backhaul from these systems because there may not be a cellular backhaul. So they bring the system with a Motorola or BK master radio hooked to them, hand radios out to the other users that would be coming in to maybe fight a fire, do search and rescue. And then they can monitor and cover, do geofences, do breadcrumbs, make sure they cover the area that is of interest in this situation. So I want to leave more time for a more recent news. In Chief Jimmy Isaac has been a longtime client of CompassCom in Boone, North Carolina. He's a thought leader in how to use this technology. He's dealing with the hill country of Western North Carolina with the university in the town, with mountain bike parks, tourists, all kinds of different things he deals with every day. And he uses Esri and CompassCom technology. And I thought it would be great if he would share with us his lessons learned and what most recently happened with the events of Helene. So with that being said, Jimmy, take it away. And we're looking forward to hear what you have to say about what you've been through.
Actually, while Chief Isaacs is coming on stage, we'd love to find out what kind of disasters you've been involved in. We've just popped up a poll on the screen. Let's hear what you guys have dealt with.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I think the event we just went through is a prime example of what can go wrong, did go wrong. And I want to talk about some of the things that we encountered and how we worked through those solutions, how some of our pre-planning and preparatory work had paid dividends, and how we're going to continue to work through this. A little quick background on the event. We lost power early on the 27th. Generator service at the stations and town facilities, for the biggest part, took over, but we lost internet service not just to the town, but we lost internet service to the dispatch center at the county, which had diverse routes. Both routes failed. Our internet backhaul from the cell service was severely degraded. We lost about 70% of the cell sites in the county. So much of our normal operations that we have become dependent on were dependent on internet service, either mobile broadband or internet service back to our servers. We ran into issues where we have become extremely dependent on travel directions. We went back to the Excel spreadsheets we have that have street names and travel directions that we keep on the apparatus, that we were able to access that. We also keep standalone versions of all of our GIS data. We keep a version of ArcMap with MXDs on each of the apparatus that gives us mapping data even in a disconnected environment. I'm trying to look through my spreadsheet or my notes I've got because there was so many things that did not go the way we hoped would, that it's a lot to look through, and that's one reason I didn't use slides, because it really is a lot that we have to think through. Our GIS department, we run an enterprise environment and host everything internally, which was extremely beneficial from the standpoint when we lost reliable internet service for about 4 days. We were able to get some level of service back up on day 3, but we were only able to bring part of our system back up. And I'm going to get into that a little more in just a second. The things that really went well was once the damage assessment started and we started using Survey 123, it was a simple process of getting somewhere where we had internet service and being able to get those projects loaded on the local device. Then, as long as we could get access back to where we had internet service, we could upload that data to the state. North Carolina did a really good job in keeping that data, making little preliminary changes as we needed them, making adjustments to dashboards to help us get the information we needed. And that really worked well. One of the things that was extremely important and is going to be a lesson learned, a project we've been working on for probably close to a year, was offline data for our field maps, the Esri product. We had part of that up and running, but what we found out was because all of our water and sewer utilities are mapped through our GIS department, we were depending on our field map projects being online projects. And once we lost both internet from our ISP to the town network, and we lost the cellular broadband, we lost the ability to access a lot of that data, which ended up being trips to the office, a lot of lost productivity because of that. Currently, we're looking at everything. We have a online project through our enterprise system. We're going to create an offline project that mirrors that. So as we get into these environments in the future, we can alleviate this portion of the issue. And another thing that we had worked on for about the past 6 or 8 months, because of some wildfire issues we had, was creating those offline projects. And we had had those created, but we had not got to the point of creating those that gave us the utility information that we needed for the water and sewer operation. I want to talk a little bit about our CompassCom products and what we use with CompassCom. We have used AVL data since about 2014 or 15, and we have found that to be very beneficial from the aspect that we needed a mechanism to track our portable radios and response activities on a conventional P25 network. The solution we use is to pass location data back to the server. We have a donor radio that is attached to the server. We collect that, connect that back to the repeater as that data is transmitted with the radios, even through our 5-minute polling interval, or on the push to talk, it collects that data and in turn gives us the ability to display that data. That can be looked at either locally or through a website that we can access. Unfortunately, during the hurricane with loss of internet activity, the only place that that data was accessible was through local access at the fire stations or other town facilities. For the biggest part, our internal network and local dark fiber network between facilities stayed operational. So that worked great as long as we had an environment where we could pull somebody away to use that. And we did use that to a large extent once we got past the primary event on the 27th. We started using it more midday, later in the day on the 27th as the event moved on. One of the issues we ran into early on was integrating Starlink into our network as an emergency measure to bring our internet access back online. As we did this, there were some things we were not entirely aware of that we discovered during this process. Starlink only allows one external IP address or a public IP address. And in order to pass that public IP address to the internal network, you have to completely disable the wireless, which was somewhat expected. So in our normal environment, we operate with about 28 IP addresses where we can segregate each activity with its own DNS. And during this process, we had to get real creative and was only able to bring a portion of what we needed back online. And that in turn meant we could not bring our portal server back online and get that piece of the Esri products up and running. So a lot of this is a learning experience to figure out, even though we felt like we had made a lot of positive headway in the past, the CompassCom product, our Esri products, we just need to develop fail-safe methods. We are not as dependent on some of the technology as far as communications network that are so prone to failure. Now, if we historically go back and look at disasters, whether it be wildfire, whether it be hurricanes, whether it be floods, we see a common denominator of all of the systems that fail. We see power failures, we see communication systems failure, we see internet failures. In the town, we lost our entire water system for about 72 hours. That was one of the things that would have been extremely beneficial, was looking at utility data in a live environment instead of having to send people back to the office, or depending on interpretation of what they're looking at on the screen and relaying that information to the people in the field. Like I said earlier, our dispatch center received an astronomical amount of 911 calls. There was some early provisions made to route excess 911 calls to another PSAP outside the affected area. Unfortunately, we lost the ability to get the information back from those calls because of fiber optic network was compromised on our diverse routes back. So I think that as we look at this, we see that technology is such a benefit to us, but we also have to learn not to become complacent and have backup plans for this. We keep caches of portable radios that are pre-configured to use either the CompassRespond system or the CompassTrac server. We were able to deploy those as resources began to arrive later in the day on the 27th. We were able to deploy the radios and stuff to those assets to help with that. After the fact or a recovery standpoint, we started getting a good bit of post-storm satellite data that we could utilize to look for damage, especially landslide areas, look for stream beds that had changed. And a lot of those things were good pieces of intelligence to look at how this storm had changed the landscape and what it's going to look like in the future as we move forward. In a brief overview, that basically covers most of what we encountered without getting real down in the weeds with it. A lot of different pieces and parts that really took days to get back operational to where we could operate normally. It took the town's internet was 8 days before it was back operational to where we could get some things back to normal. Lessons learned is going to be making sure that we try to look at where our lines of internet come from. Currently, we're in the process of looking at diversifying where we get our internet from. Currently, our internet comes from the south, out of the Asheville area. Asheville was hit extremely hard, and that was part of the time lag in getting internet back up. Looking to get another provider that either comes in from the north or the west, and trying to figure some redundancy in what we currently have. And that's all I've got for this.